The city did not care. That was the first thing you learned about Chicago in January. It did not care how tired you were. It did not care how thin your coat was, or how long your shift had been, or how many hours of sleep you had managed to pull together in the dark between one day and the next. The cold came off the lake and moved through the streets like it owned them, which it did. And everyone walking through it was just borrowing time until they could get back inside somewhere warm. Nora Hayes knew this cold the way you know something you have lived with long enough that you stop noticing it and just work around it. She left the apartment at 4:45 every morning. Same route, same cracked sidewalk on Del Mar where the concrete had heaved up from a winter 2 years back and the city had never come to fix it. Same broken streetlight at the corner of Vine that buzzed and flickered and sometimes went out entirely. She had stopped looking up at it months ago. Some things you just learn to walk around. The apartment was on the third floor of a building where the elevator worked about half the time. This was not one of those times. It had not been one of those times for 11 days. She had stopped counting after the first week. Lily was still sleeping when she left. 4 years old and completely fearless in sleep, arms thrown wide, one sock on one sock, somewhere on the floor in the dark. Nora always found it before she left, tucked it back on without waking her. Small things. That was what the days were made of. Small things done quietly in the dark before the world started asking things of you. Eugenia from 4B came at 6. She had a key. She had been coming since Lily was 18 months old, back when Nora first picked up the second shift at Harlow's and realized she needed someone, or she was going to come apart at the seams without anyone noticing until it was already done. Eugenia never asked for much. Sometimes she did not say anything at all. Just came in, sat in the armchair by the window with her decaf and her newspaper, and waited for Lily to wake up. Nora had tried to pay her 3 times. Eugenia had looked at the money like it was something she did not recognize. So now they had a different arrangement. Fresh coffee every morning, a covered plate in the refrigerator, and every Sunday Nora sat with Eugenia for exactly 1 hour and just talked. Not about bills, not about Lily's daycare schedule or the leak under the kitchen sink that had been getting worse since October. Just talked. It was the most human Nora felt all week, and she did not examine that fact too closely because examining it would cost something she could not afford to spend. The coffee shop was called Brew & Co., and it smelled like burned espresso and people running late. Nora worked the morning rush, 6 to 11, then a 2-hour gap, then Harlow's for the dinner shift. 4 nights a week. Sometimes 5 if someone called out. She was good at both jobs. That was the thing nobody ever talked about. How good you could get at something you never chose. How your hands learned rhythms your brain stopped having to think about. Pull the shot. Steam the milk. Do not burn it. Smile. Next, table 4 needs water. Table 7 wants the check. Do not let table 9 wait more than 4 minutes. She had it down to a science, which was good because Nora Hayes did not have the luxury of coasting. The rent was $1,100 a month. Daycare was $940. Utilities ran about $200 in winter, sometimes more, when the building's ancient heating system decided it had opinions about when and whether to work. Groceries. Lily's winter coat she had outgrown by November, and the replacement had come from the rack at the thrift store on Paulson, 2 sizes up, so it would last. The cavity in Nora's back molar she had been ignoring since September because the dentist was $400 and $400 was $400. She kept a list on her phone, not a budget exactly, more like a map of everything that could go wrong. She checked it the way some people check the weather, constantly, hoping something had changed, knowing it had not. But she was still standing, and on the mornings when the cold came off the lake hardest and the street light on Vine was out again and the elevator was broken again, that was the thing she held on to, still standing. That counted for something. It was a Tuesday when the ground shifted. She did not know that walking in. She was thinking about the list, thinking about the fact that Lily had mentioned her shoes were tight that morning, which meant shoes were coming, which meant she needed to find something on the list that could give without everything else collapsing. She clocked in at 4:30, changed into her uniform in the back room, white button-down black slacks, hair pulled back. She glanced at herself in the mirror above the lockers. Tired. Functional. Fine. Camille was already on the floor. 3 years at Harlow's Zero Filters, exactly the right amount of warmth to make that acceptable. She passed Nora in the doorway with a full tray and a look. Table 6 is being a whole situation tonight, and Mrs. Whitmore is in a mood. Mrs. Whitmore was the floor manager. Her moods had moods. Nora tied her apron, took a breath, pushed through the door into the dining room. Harlow's was not the most expensive restaurant in the city, but it sat close enough to the financial district that the clientele ran toward dark suits and expectations. Good food, better wine list. The kind of place where people made deals over appetizers and believed nobody was paying attention. Nora had learned early. Keep your eyes professional. Do not stare. Do not react. Take the order. Bring the food. Move on. She had waited on city council members and corporate attorneys, and once a man who turned out to have been indicted for securities fraud 3 weeks later, though she had only found that out afterward. She was assigned tables 5 through 10 on the east side. She moved through her section, checked in with 7, refilled water at 9, noticed table 10 needed a new bread basket, grabbed one on the way back. Then she turned toward table 9. 4 men, dark suits, the quiet kind of expensive that did not need to announce itself. The table had just been seated. She picked up the water pitcher and walked over and was already starting her greeting when she looked up and stopped. Not visibly, not in a way anyone at the table would have noticed. Just a half second. A single missed beat like a record skipping once and then catching again. She had trained herself for a long time not to react to things in public. This was the first time in years that training had actually been tested in a way that mattered. She knew that face. She had spent a significant portion of the last 5 years learning not to know that face, and she had gotten good at it, or thought she had. Marcus Ellison, older than she remembered. Of course he was. 5 years was 5 years. The ease that used to sit on him, like something he had been born wearing, was gone, replaced by something harder and more deliberate. The jaw was set differently. The shoulders carried weight in a way that spoke of decisions made and lived with. His hair was cut close at the sides. His suit was dark navy, fitted in the way that costs real money and does not advertise the fact. But the eyes, those were the same. Dark and steady, and the kind of direct that made you feel like being looked at and being understood were the same thing. Nora had loved those eyes once. She had also spent a very long time being furious at them. She took a breath, filled the water glasses, did not spill a drop. That was a victory. Small, necessary. I'm Nora, and I'll be taking care of you this evening. Can I start anyone with something from the bar? Her voice was level, professional, even. She was proud of that. The men gave their orders. 1 wanted bourbon, 2 wanted sparkling water. She wrote it down without looking up more than she had to. Marcus watched her the whole time. He was not aggressive about it. He was not making anything of it in front of the others. Just watching with an expression she could not read and was not going to try to. She kept her eyes on her notepad. And for you, a pause. Club soda. With lime. She wrote it down, thanked the table, walked away without looking back. She got to the service station and set down the water pitcher and stood there for exactly 3 seconds. Then she picked it back up and kept moving. The next 2 hours were manageable. That was the word she used in her head. Manageable. She took their orders, brought the food, refilled things when they needed refilling, answered questions, maintained professional distance with the kind of precision that required every bit of focus she had, because underneath it her mind was doing the math she did not want to do. 5 years, not a word. And now he was sitting in her section at Harlow's ordering club soda with lime, like the intervening years were something that had happened to other people. Marcus did not push, did not try to catch her eye beyond what he had already done, did not make it uncomfortable in front of his associates. The other men talked throughout dinner. Business, numbers, projections. Marcus spoke less than they did. When he did speak, they listened. Not because he was louder, because he was certain. Every word placed with intention. She noticed that. She did not want to notice it, but she did. Camille materialized at the service station while Nora was entering a dessert order. Table 9, Camille said quietly, like she was reporting weather. I know, Nora said. That is Marcus Ellison. Ellison Capital. You know him. Not a question. Camille had seen things over 3 years of working alongside Nora. She could read the particular stillness Nora used when she was holding something down. Old neighborhood, Nora said, which was technically true and the smallest possible version of the truth. Camille looked at her for a long moment. You okay? I'm at work. That is not what I asked. Nora looked at her. I'm at work, she said again. Camille nodded once. Let it go. That was one of the things Nora valued most about her. The men at table 9 wrapped up around 9:30. Efficient. No lingering over dessert. No third round of drinks. Marcus signed the receipt without looking at the total. When Nora returned the folder, he said quietly, "Thank you." She said, "Of course, have a good evening, gentlemen," and turned to go. Nora. One word. Just her name. She stopped. Not because she decided to. Her body simply did it. 5 years and her nervous system still recognized his voice the same way it had always recognized it, which she considered deeply unfair. She turned back slowly. The other men were already moving toward the exit. Marcus was still seated looking at her with those steady eyes. "It's good to see you," he said. She looked at him for one full second. "Enjoy the rest of your evening," she said, and walked away. The last hour of her shift, she moved on autopilot. Tables 12 and 14 needed attention. She gave it. Mrs. Whitmore circled the floor twice. Nora did not give her anything to comment on. At 10:50, she started her side work. Rolled silverware, wiped down the station, changed her apron because there was a sauce splatter she had been ignoring since table 7. Camille appeared beside her. "You leaving right at 11? "Yes, I'll walk out with you. You don't have to." "I know," Camille said, and stayed. They clocked out together, got their coats from the back, came out through the employee entrance into the alley that ran along the east side of the building. The cold was different now than it had been walking in. Sharper. The kind that got into your lungs on the first breath and reminded you that the city did not care. Nora buttoned her coat to the throat. And then she saw the car. Black SUV, parked at the mouth of the alley where it opened onto the street. Engine off, and Marcus standing beside it. He was not performing anything, not gesturing, not doing anything that could be called a move. Just standing there in the cold hands in his coat pockets, eyes on her. Patient in a way that told her this was not an impulse. He had thought about this. Had decided before walking into Harlow's that evening that if she came out that door he was going to be standing there, and he was going to let whatever happened next be entirely her choice. Camille went very still beside her. "That's him," she said under her breath. "Yes, you want me to stay?" Nora looked at the car, at the man beside it, at the way he was just there not pushing anything, and felt something complicated move through her chest that she did not have a name for and was not going to try to find one tonight. "No, I'm fine." Camille looked at her a beat longer than comfortable. "I'll be inside for another 20 minutes. "Thank you." Camille went back in. Nora walked toward the street. She stopped 6 feet from him, close enough for conversation, far enough to mean something. The cold did not seem to bother him. He looked the same as he had inside the restaurant, and somehow more real out here, without the lighting and the noise and all those other people positioned between them. She waited. He opened his mouth, closed it, which she had never seen him do before. Marcus Ellison had always known exactly what he was going to say, had always been 3 sentences ahead of everyone else in the room. She watched him fail to speak and felt something shift in the complicated thing moving through her chest. Then she talked first, because that was who she was now. Someone who talked first and did not wait for the ground to be prepared for her. "I have a daughter," she said. Her voice was flat, controlled. "She's 4 years old. Her name is Lily." She watched the information move across his face in real time. Watched something open behind his eyes. Something that looked for one unguarded moment like a man standing at the edge of something very large and finally understanding the distance down. She did not wait for him to respond. She turned and walked to the bus stop. The bus was 4 minutes away according to her phone. She stood at the stop with her hands in her pockets and her jaw set, and she did not look back. The bus came. She got on, found a window seat near the back, sat down and put her forehead against the cold glass and let herself close her eyes for exactly 1 minute. 1 minute. Then she sat up straight and checked her phone. Eugenia had texted at 9:45. "Lily sleeping. Coffee was good tonight." Nora typed back, "Home by 11:30. She put the phone in her pocket and looked out the window at the city moving past, indifferent as always, cold as always. And somewhere in the part of herself she had been carefully managing for 5 years, something shifted. She did not name it. She was not ready to name it. She just felt it move. Marcus Ellison stood at the mouth of that alley for a long time after the bus pulled away. He was used to knowing what came next. That was the foundation everything else was built on. You analyzed, you prepared, you walked into every room having already mapped the exits. He had planned this evening carefully. The reservation, the timing, the specific table in her section. Ellison Capital had completed the acquisition of the Harlow's building 6 months ago, and during the due diligence review, Callum had cross-referenced the tenant-employee records and found the name. Nora Hayes, Harlow's restaurant, current employee. Marcus had driven past the restaurant 4 times in the weeks after Callum told him, sat in the parking lot, talked himself in and talked himself out, and then driven away. Tonight he had finally walked through the door and nothing had gone the way he had mapped it. She had been so completely contained, so deliberately composed, like she had been expecting him and had decided years ago exactly how this would go. That was what had thrown him. Not anger, he had prepared for anger. Not tears, he had prepared for those too, had prepared for the door slammed in his face, the sharp words, the years of silence finally breaking open into something loud and justified. He had not prepared for her to be fine. Except she was not fine. He had seen that. In the half-second pause when she first looked up. In the slight tightening around her eyes when she took his order. She was not fine at all. She was surviving. There was a difference. He knew the difference because he had spent 5 years surviving too, and he recognized the posture in another person the way you recognize your own handwriting on a page you do not remember writing. But what she had said at the end, a daughter, 4 years old, Lily. He got back in the SUV, sat in the dark. Callum was in the driver's seat and did not say anything, which was one of the reasons Marcus had kept him around for 4 years. The math was not complicated. He sat with it for a long time. He called her the next morning at 6:45. He knew she had 2 jobs. Figured if she was up, she was up. If she was asleep, he would leave a message and accept whatever that meant. She answered on the second ring. "I was wondering if you'd call," she said. No greeting, just that. "I wasn't sure you'd answer," he said. A pause. "What do you want, Marcus?" Not a question. A door cracked open the width of one sentence. "To talk," he said. "Face to face, not at your job." Silence on her end. Not hostile. The particular quiet of someone thinking rather than refusing. "Riverside Park," she said finally. "The bench near the east entrance. Saturday. 10 o'clock. Just us. Don't bring anyone." "Okay. And don't be late." "I won't." She hung up. He sat there with the phone in his hand and realized he had not taken a full breath in approximately 45 seconds. He got to Riverside Park at 9:45. He told himself it was habit. He was always early. That was how he operated. It had nothing to do with the fact that he had barely slept in 2 days or that he had spent most of Friday night trying to construct an opening sentence that could cover 5 years without either minimizing them or drowning in them. He sat on the bench near the east entrance and watched the park find its Saturday morning rhythm. A man walked a dog the size of a small vehicle. 2 kids ran ahead of their father arguing about something with the total conviction only children could sustain. An older woman moved through her morning stretches near the far path with the careful deliberateness of someone who understood the body required maintenance and had made a long peace with that fact. Normal Saturday. Normal world. He was sitting in the middle of it, feeling like the ground was 2 inches lower than it should be. Nora arrived at 10:03. She came through the east entrance in a dark green coat that had seen a few winters. No Lily. She had said just us and she had meant it. Her hair was down and the cold had put color in her cheeks, and she looked the way she had always looked to him, which was like the thing he kept measuring everything else against without meaning to and without being able to stop. She sat on the other end of the bench, enough space between them to fit another person. She looked straight ahead for a moment at the kids on the path, at the bare trees, at whatever she was deciding to see. Then she looked at him. "You have 2 minutes to start," she said. "Before I change my mind about being here." He started. He did not pretty it up. He had thought about doing that, had drafted versions in his head that made him sound better, more decisive, less like someone who had failed a person who mattered. He threw all of it out before he opened his mouth. "My uncle died," he said. 5 years ago. You didn't know him well. He left everything to me. The company, the properties, the debts. There was a clause in the estate. I had to take over as acting CEO within 60 days or the whole thing went into receivership." He paused. The company had 40 employees, people who had worked for him for years. He didn't have anyone else. So you didn't have a choice, Nora said, flat, not forgiving, just acknowledging the stated fact. I had a choice, Marcus said. I could have walked away, but I would have been walking away from everyone who depended on him too. He looked at his hands. I told myself I'd get things stable and then reach out to you. 6 months, maybe. 6 months, Nora said. Then a year. Then 5. Yes. The word landed between them like something dropped from a height. That is not the whole story, Nora said. No. He reached into his coat and took out an envelope, set it on the bench between them. She looked at it but did not touch it. What is that? About 8 months after I left, he said, I asked Callum, my assistant, to find you. I needed to know you were okay. He kept his voice even. He found you fairly quickly, gave me an address, told me you were working, that you were managing. Nora had gone very still beside him. He checked in again. Marcus continued about 2 years after that. By then you had Lily. She was around 8 months old. He stopped. He told me you seemed stable, that you had a routine, that the baby was healthy. Another pause. Coming back at that point, he said, would only have disrupted what you'd built. The silence that followed was long enough that a jogger passed on the path in front of them, and a dog barked somewhere in the distance, and neither of them moved or looked away from the middle distance. Then Nora picked up the envelope, opened it slowly, looked at what was inside. Something in her jaw tightened. Not crying, something harder than crying. The expression of a person absorbing a truth that they had half suspected and had hoped they were wrong about. That's the investigator's report from 2 years ago, Marcus said, and a more recent one from 6 months back. After the Harlow's property came into our portfolio, Callum cross-referenced the employee records and found your name again. That's how I knew where you worked. She looked up. So your company was already moving toward buying the building where I work. At the time, I didn't know it was part of the portfolio. That was handled several levels below me in the acquisition chain. When Callum found your name in the records, he brought it to me separately. He held her gaze steadily. I'm telling you this now so there's no version later where it comes out differently. She looked back down at the papers. You knew about Lily, she said, for over 2 years, and you still didn't come. Yes. Why? He was quiet for a moment. A long one. Because Callum told me not to, and I let him. He stopped. That's the part I cannot make sound better than it was. I let someone else make a decision that wasn't his to make. And you and Lily paid for it. She put the papers back in the envelope, set it on the bench between them. Did not give it back. Did not keep it either. She looks like you, Nora said finally. Her voice was different now. Not softer exactly, but the edge had shifted into something less like a wall and more like a door. She has your eyes, your chin. She frowns the way you do when she's concentrating on something. He did not say anything. His throat had closed in a way he had not experienced since he was very young. I told her father had to go away before she was born, Nora said. That he was brave. That he would have loved her if he had known about her. She paused. I told her that because she needed something to hold on to. Not because I believed it. The last sentence arrived like a door closing quietly in a house where everything else had already gone still. He deserved that. He knew he deserved that without qualification. I want to meet her, he said. I know, will you let me? She was quiet for a long time, looking at the park, at the kids on the path, at the ordinary Saturday morning continuing around them without any awareness of what was being decided on this bench. One time she said finally, Here, I'll bring her. You can meet her, but I need something from you first. The actual truth about why you really didn't come back. Not the version you prepared, the real one. And he looked at her, and then he told her. The actual version was simpler and worse than anything he had rehearsed. He had been terrified. Not of her, not of Lily, of himself. Of what kind of father he would be when the only model he had ever had disappeared when he was 6 years old. Of what kind of partner he could be when he had spent 5 years learning to operate without needing anyone. Of walking back into her life and making it worse instead of better. Of being again the thing that caused damage and then left. He said all of this quietly, looking at the ground sometimes, and at her other times, and not trying to soften it with phrasing. When he finished, there was a long quiet. Nora said, That was honest. Yes, it was also a reason, not an excuse. I know the difference, he said. She nodded once, stood up, pulled her coat tighter against the cold. Saturday after next, she said. Same place, 10 o'clock. I'll bring Lily. She walked back toward the east entrance without looking back. He watched her go. Then he pulled out his phone and called Callum. Callum answered on the first ring. How did it go? She agreed to let me meet Lily. Marcus said. That's good. I need to ask you something. A pause. Okay. When you found Nora 2 years ago and chose not to tell me about Lily right away, Marcus said, walk me through that decision. A longer pause. The kind of silence that answers the question before any words arrive. I thought you weren't ready, Callum said finally. That wasn't your call to make. I know, you took 2 years from me, with my daughter. Marcus's voice was completely level. I need you to sit with that. Not the intention. The result. He hung up. He sat on that bench in the January cold and felt something very quiet and very final settle into place inside him. The park went on being itself around him. Ordinary Saturday morning sounds. A world that did not know anything had just shifted. He stood up, hands in his pockets. Only what came next. He got there 12 minutes early, not to make a point, not because he wanted Nora to see him waiting and feel something about it. He got there 12 minutes early because he had not slept well and had been driving in slow circles around the neighborhood since 9:15, and at some point it seemed less strange to just park the car and walk over than to keep circling the same 4 blocks pretending he was doing anything other than exactly what he was doing. The park was quieter than the last time. A Saturday with real cold in it, the kind that kept sensible people inside with their coffee. Marcus had no such discipline today. He sat on the bench and waited. At 10:01 he saw them. Nora came through the east entrance in that same dark green coat, and beside her, small and moving fast, a red jacket in dark curls escaping from a yellow hat, a 4-year-old who had somewhere to be and had already decided she was the one leading this particular operation. Lily. He knew it was her. Obviously he knew, but knowing a thing and seeing it are 2 different countries entirely. He had known she existed for over 2 years. He had known her name for 12 days. He had not been prepared for what it would feel like to see her in person for the first time. Like something in his chest cracked open that he had not known was closed. A door swinging wide into a room he had not known was there. He stood up slowly. The way you move when you do not want to startle something precious. Nora saw him, gave him a look that said exactly nothing and everything at the same time, then looked down at Lily. Lily had already found him. She stopped walking, stood there in her red jacket and yellow hat, and studied him with the unfiltered attention that 4-year-olds deployed like a precision instrument. He crouched down, brought himself to her level, left enough distance between them. A moment passed in which he felt more thoroughly evaluated than he had in any boardroom in his adult life. Do you know how to make pancakes? Lily asked. He blinked. Yes, he said. I do. She tilted her head. My mom makes them burnt, she said, delivered with the calm authority of someone reporting verifiable fact. Behind her, Nora pressed her lips together. I can make them not burnt, Marcus said. Lily looked at him for another long moment, the kind of assessment that had no mercy and no politics in it. Okay, she said finally, you can stay. And just like that, it was decided. He stood back up, looked at Nora, who was definitely not smiling, except for the corner of her mouth, which was doing something she had not authorized it to do. Come on, Lily said, already moving toward the playground. I want to go on the slide. They followed her. What else could they do? Marcus had negotiated with people who had teams of lawyers and decades of practice being difficult. He had sat across from men who believed intimidation was a strategy and had outlasted every single one of them. None of that had prepared him for Lily. She ran up the ladder to the big slide and looked back at him from the top with complete expectation. Watch, she said. He watched. She came down fast, landed at the bottom, stood up, and brushed her jacket off with enormous dignity. Did you see? I saw. I'm not scared of it anymore. I used to be scared. She said this with the gravity of someone reporting a hard-won personal triumph. I'm not anymore. That's brave, Marcus said. She nodded, accepting the assessment as accurate, and ran back up. They did this 6 times. He watched all 6, said something genuine after each one which required no effort whatsoever because he meant every word. He watched this small person hurl herself down a metal slide in the January cold with absolute fearlessness, and thought about where that specific quality came from. It was not Nora's bravery. Nora's was different. The quiet kind, the kind that did not announce itself and did not need to. This was something else. Louder, more reckless. He recognized it the way you recognize your own face in a photograph you did not know was being taken. After the sixth slide, Lily redirected to the swings. Nora pushed her. Marcus stood to the side and watched and held himself together, which he was mostly managing. After a while, Lily said without looking at him, "Are you my dad?" The swing kept moving. Nora kept pushing. The whole park seemed to pull one breath and hold it. Marcus looked at Nora. She looked back at him. Her expression carried something he could not fully read. Permission, and also whatever you say next, you had better mean every syllable of it. He stepped closer to the swing, waited for it to arc back toward him. "Yes," he said. "I am." Lily processed this for 2 full swings, her small face working through something internal. "Why didn't you come before?" she asked. There it was, the question that did not have a version, that did not cost something to answer. He thought about the careful explanations he had prepared, the ones that framed him as a man navigating impossible circumstances, rather than a man who had chosen wrong. He let all of it go. "Because I was wrong," he said. "And I'm sorry." Lily swung forward, swung back. "Okay," she said, and filed it away somewhere with the efficiency of someone who had asked what she needed to ask and received what she needed to receive and was ready to move on. Because children do not hold on to things the way adults do. They ask, they hear the answer, they decide what to do with it, and then they move. He could learn something from that. They got hot chocolate from the cart near the East Path. Lily got marshmallows and asked for extra, and the man at the cart gave her extra, and she thanked him with the solemnity of someone completing an important transaction. They sat on the bench with Lily in the middle, Marcus on one side, Nora on the other. The hot chocolate was too hot to drink yet, so Lily held the cup in both hands and blew on it in small, serious puffs and watched the foam move with deep concentration. "Do you have any other kids?" she asked. "No, just you." She seemed pleased with this, the small, private satisfaction of being singular. He could see it clearly in her face. "I have a stuffed rabbit named Biscuit," she said. "He's brown. He has one ear that's longer than the other because I pulled it a lot when I was a baby." "That sounds like a very good rabbit." "He is. He's the best one." She blew on the foam again with great seriousness. "You can meet him sometime." And just like that, he was in. He looked at Nora over the top of Lily's yellow hat. Nora was looking at her daughter with an expression so full it almost hurt to observe from the outside. Pride and exhaustion and love in the specific form it takes when you have been carrying it alone for a long time and have gotten so practiced at carrying it that you have almost forgotten what it felt like before the weight arrived. She looked up, caught him looking. Something passed between them. Not forgiveness, not yet, not anything close to romance, just recognition. 2 people acknowledging they were both here and that the small person between them was real and that whatever came next would have to account for her above everything else. That was enough for now. He came back the following Saturday, and the one after that. Each time Nora set the location. Each time Marcus arrived early. Each time Lily had an agenda, and he followed it without complaint. They built a snowman that fell over immediately. Lily blamed the snow, not the engineering, and Marcus agreed without hesitation. They read a book about a princess who turned into a dragon, which Lily felt was the correct natural order of events. He was assigned the role of the dragon in all subsequent retellings and performed it to her exacting and occasionally harsh satisfaction. He learned things. That Lily ate the crust of her sandwich first, then worked inward toward the middle. That she made a low humming sound when she was thinking hard, like a small engine running just below the surface. That she was left-handed. That she asked approximately 40 questions per hour and expected real answers to all of them, not simplified ones, actual ones delivered seriously. He also began to notice things about Nora that she did not offer directly. That she tracked Lily with one continuous thread of attention, even when she appeared to be looking somewhere else entirely. That she always carried 2 snacks, even for a 1-hour park visit. That she had a habit of pressing the side of her thumb into her palm when she was turning something over in her mind. Usually when she was watching him with Lily working out some private calculation. He did not rush her. He showed up on time and followed Lily around and did not ask Nora for anything beyond what she had already agreed to give. That was the only thing he was certain of in this entire arrangement. Whatever was rebuilt here, if anything was rebuilt at all, it would happen at her pace on her terms, and his job for now was to be exactly where he said he would be when he said he would be there every single time. By the fourth Saturday, Lily stopped checking with Nora every 10 minutes to confirm he was coming back. By the fifth, she started telling him things without being asked. What happened at daycare, what her friend had done that was annoying, what she had dreamed about on Thursday night. By the sixth, she started saving things for him specifically. A drawing she had made, a rock that looked like a heart if you held it at the right angle. A question she had been keeping since Wednesday because she wanted to ask him and not anyone else. Why do birds fly south in winter? He explained it. She listened with her whole face the way she did with everything that interested her. So they go where it's warm, she said. Basically. That's smart. It is. She thought about this for a moment, chewing on the inside of her cheek. I would do that, she said. If I was a bird. I hate being cold. He almost said me too. Not about cold. About something else entirely. He did not because it was true in a way that had nothing to do with weather, and he was not ready to say it out loud yet, and more importantly, he was not certain it was his to say. Then came the Tuesday that changed the shape of everything. Marcus was in the middle of a quarterly review, numbers on a screen, Callum across the table, 3 members of his acquisitions team presenting slides about a hospitality portfolio the company had absorbed 6 weeks earlier. His phone lit up on the table. Nora. He picked it up and stepped out of the room. Hey, he said. Her voice was flat in the way it got when she was holding something steady by force. I need to tell you something. He waited. I lost my job at Harlow's. He went still. What happened? The restaurant was sold. New ownership is bringing in their own staff. The whole East Side dining team got let go. He already knew what was coming before she said the next part. He could feel it arriving. The company that bought the building, she said. It's under Ellison Capital. The silence between them had weight and texture. He stood in the hallway outside his conference room and ran through the acquisition list in his mind. Found it. The Harlow's property. Mixed-use building. South end of the hospitality portfolio. That transaction had been managed 4 levels below him. He had not been in those details, had not looked at the tenant breakdown, had not connected the building back to the conversation he had had with Nora about her work because it had not occurred to him to look. He had not looked. I didn't know, he said. I figured, she said, which landed harder than anger would have. Nora, I genuinely did not know. I believe you. She said it the way you say something that is true and also changes nothing about the situation on the ground. She had just lost half her income, and the mechanism that caused it had his name on the door regardless of how many organizational layers stood between him and the decision. I'm coming over, he said. You don't have to. I'm coming over. He went back into the conference room, looked at Callum, the Harlow's property, hospitality portfolio, who approved the staffing transition plan. Callum was already pulling it up. Langford's team, he said, standard acquisition protocol. Clear existing staff, bring in contracted management for the transition period. Halt it, Marcus said. For that property specifically. Today. Callum looked up. That's going to create complications with the transition timeline. Halt it. He left the building. He got to her apartment at 6:15, 3rd floor. The elevator was out again, same as it had been for weeks. The stairwell had the layered smell of old carpet and something that had been cooking for hours somewhere above. He went up and knocked. She opened the door. Still in her Brew & Co. uniform from the morning shift. Had not changed. Came straight home. Lily's at Eugenia's, she said. I figured we should talk without an audience. Good call, she let him in. He had seen the apartment once before, briefly dropping something off at the door. Standing inside it was different. The full picture of her life from the inside. Small and clean with the deliberateness of someone who had limited space and treated it with intention. A sofa with one cushion, slightly flatter than the others. A coffee table with one leg propped up by a thick paperback wedged beneath it. The kitchen was narrow but organized. Spices lined above the stove in a precise row. A whiteboard on the refrigerator with a weekly schedule in different colored markers. Lily's in pink, Nora's in blue, Eugenia's in green. Lily's drawings covered the walls without any concern for symmetry or convention. A sunset in orange and yellow. A rabbit with one ear distinctly longer than the other. Something that might have been a horse or might have been a car. Hard to say. And on the counter, a stack of envelopes he recognized by their shape and the way they were arranged. Bills, several of them. Waiting. He saw them. Said nothing about them. But he saw them. Nora was watching him take it all in. Say what you're going to say, she said. You're looking at everything like you're calculating something. He stopped, turned to face her directly. I'm looking because this is where you've been for 5 years, he said. I wanted to see it. A pause stretched between them. She unfolded her arms, looked away briefly. Sit down if you want. He sat on the sofa, the flat cushion. She sat at the other end. Harlow's was my better shift, she said. Better tips. Brew & Co. is consistent, but it doesn't cover everything on its own. She looked at the whiteboard on the refrigerator. I need to find something by the end of the month. I can help cover the gap, he said. The bills. Until you find something. He kept his voice even and careful. My company bought that building. My company let you go. I don't need to have personally signed off on it for that to be my responsibility. She looked at him for a long time before she answered. I don't want to owe you anything. It's not about owing. It's about a gap that my actions even indirectly created. That's just what's right. She looked away again. I hate this, she said quietly. I know. I had a system. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. And now something changed and I didn't change it. And now something changed, he said carefully. That's not weakness. That's just how things go sometimes. The apartment settled around them. Sounds from other floors. A television somewhere above. The ordinary texture of other lives happening in close proximity. I'm going to say something, he said. And I need you to hear it as information, not as pressure. She looked at him. I've been watching you for 6 weeks every Saturday. I see how you move through a day. I see what it costs you. He looked at his hands for a moment, then back at her. You've been holding this entire thing alone for years, and I want you to not have to. Not because I'm trying to fix the past, because you're the mother of my daughter and you deserve better than this. So does she. The room held those words. Nora looked at him with an expression that contained several things at once. You don't get to walk back in after 5 years and decide you want to fix things, she said. That's not how it works. You missed everything. Her first word, her first steps, her first fever when she was 6 months old. I was alone at the emergency room at 2 in the morning. Her voice did not break. It got quieter. I didn't have anyone to call. I sat in that waiting room by myself and I kept it together because I had to. I always kept it together because I had to. She paused. I'm not telling you this so you feel guilty. I'm telling you so you understand what we actually came from. I understand. Do you? No, he said. Not fully. I never will. But I'm listening. She looked at the window, at the dark outside it for a long moment. She saved your seat at the park last Saturday, Nora said eventually. Put her scarf on the bench next to her so nobody else would sit there. She has never done that before. He did not say anything. She asked me on Tuesday if you were coming back, Nora said. And when I said yes, she went back to her drawing, like that was just the piece of information she had needed, and everything was fine. She shook her head slightly. She trusts so fast. He waited. I used to trust like that, she said. I know. I don't anymore. I know that too. He held her gaze. I'm asking you to let me earn it back. Slowly. On your terms. Not because I deserve it. Because Lily deserves to see what that looks like when someone actually does it. She stood and went to the kitchen, came back with 2 mugs of tea, set one in front of him without asking whether he wanted it. He took that as something worth noting. They talked for 2 hours after that. Not about Harlow's, not about the bills on the counter or the logistics of what came next. They talked about the things they had never finished saying 5 years ago. He told her about the company's first year, the exhaustion of learning to run something when no one had ever shown him how. Making decisions alone in a dark office at midnight and not being certain any of them were right. Building something from inherited chaos and hoping it would hold long enough to matter. She told him about bringing Lily home from the hospital, being 23 years old standing in this apartment with a 5-pound baby and the specific terror of understanding that there was no one else. That it was just her in this space with this small life depending entirely on her not falling apart. I talked to her, Nora said. For the first few months, out loud, I'd narrate everything. This is the kitchen. This is where we eat. That's the window, and in the morning, the light comes through that way. She looked toward the window. I don't know if it helped her, but it kept me from feeling like I was doing it in complete silence. He looked at her, at the woman she had become in the years he had missed, at everything she had built in a space the size of this apartment with the resources she'd had. You didn't have to become someone remarkable, he said. You already were. I just wasn't paying attention. She looked at him like she did not know what to do with that. You're not terrible yourself, she said finally, when you're not having people surveilled. He winced. Fair. The corner of her mouth moved. Small. Enormous. It was Eugenia who changed the shape of everything next, and she did it in the quietest possible way, which was the way she did most things. The letter had been sitting in Nora's kitchen drawer for 5 days when she finally took it out again. She had put it there the night it arrived, under the takeout menus behind the rubber bands, as though distance from it would make the wanting easier to manage. It did not. She knew exactly where it was at every minute of every day, the way you always know exactly where the thing you are trying not to want is located. She read it again at the kitchen table on a Thursday evening after Lily was asleep. Returning parent initiative, full tuition, for students who had left an undergraduate program due to family circumstances. Her coursework still on record. 1 year remaining. Someone had nominated her. She had already ruled out Marcus. She had called him the same day the letter arrived, direct and flat about it, and his confusion had been completely genuine. She knew the difference between Marcus being careful and Marcus genuinely not knowing something. He had not known. She found herself standing in front of 4B without having fully decided to walk there. She knocked. Eugenia answered in her house dress with a cup of decaf and looked at Nora's face and said, "Come in, baby." Nora stepped inside, sat at the kitchen table she had sat at dozens of times over 4 years. The same blue tablecloth, the same ceramic fruit bowl with 2 oranges in it that was always either full or had exactly 2 oranges in it, never anything in between. She put the letter on the table between them. Eugenia read it, set it down, picked up her decaf. Eugenia, Nora said, "Did you do this?" A pause. "I wrote a letter," Eugenia said. "Back in October, 3 pages. I told them about you, about Lily, about what I see every morning when I come through that door." She set the mug down with the care of someone making a deliberate point. "I didn't tell you because you would have said no." Nora stared at her. "I've known you 4 years," Eugenia said. "I've watched you come home from double shifts and still read to that baby before bed. I've watched you not buy yourself a winter coat 2 years running because the money needed to go somewhere else." She folded her hands on the table with the patience of someone who has thought carefully about what she is about to say. "You are too proud to ask for what you deserve. Somebody had to do it for you." The kitchen was very quiet around them. "You could have told me," Nora said, "and you would have said I shouldn't have." Eugenia said evenly, "And I would have had to disagree with you, and then we'd have a whole thing about it." This was simpler. Nora sat with that for a long moment. She looked at this woman, this quiet, unhurried 68-year-old woman who had been sitting in Nora's armchair every single morning for 4 years, watching, saying very little, and apparently doing more than Nora had ever known or thought to ask about. "I don't know what to say," Nora said. "You don't have to say anything." Eugenia looked at her with the steadiness of someone who has long since stopped needing to be thanked for things. "Just go back to school. Finish what you started. Let somebody help you for once in your life." The words landed without drama and stayed where they landed. Nora looked at the letter on the table between them. "I have to think about it," she said. "I know you do." Eugenia stood slowly, picked up the letter, held it out. "But don't take too long. That girl of yours needs to see her mother choose herself sometimes too." Nora took the letter, walked back down the hall to her own apartment, stood in the middle of it for a long time. The whiteboard on the refrigerator, Lily's schedule in pink, her own in blue, Eugenia's in green, all those small, careful systems she had built to keep everything from falling. All the things she had quietly stopped believing were available to her because believing in them cost something she could not afford. She looked at the letter. Then she sat down on the sofa and stayed there in the quiet, letting herself want something clearly and without apology for the first time in a very long time. That was the hardest part. Not deciding, just allowing herself to want. Grant Holloway had been coming into Brew & Co. every morning for 3 weeks before he said anything beyond his order. He was 31, a contract attorney at a firm 2 blocks north, reliable in the manner of someone who had decided what his life looked like and was executing the plan without drama or complaint. He tipped well. He paid attention. He had dark eyes and an easy manner, and on the 3rd week he asked how Nora was doing in a way that indicated he was asking the actual question and not the automatic version people asked without listening to the answer. Fine, she said. Busy. You going to school, he said. I've seen the backpack. Last year of my degree. He nodded like that was something worth respecting, which it was. He came back the next morning, and the morning after that, and eventually Camille materialized at the service counter and gave Nora a look that required absolutely no translation. He is stable, Camille said. He does not have a 5-year gap in his personal history. I know, Nora said. I'm just saying. I know, Nora said again. She was not unaware of Grant Holloway. She was not unmoved by the simplicity of what he represented. A life without existing history. A person who would arrive without a debt already outstanding between them. She understood the appeal clearly and without self-deception. She had turned it over in her mind more than once in the quiet after Lily went to sleep. But she kept arriving at the same thing. Marcus had never once asked her to make things easier for him. He showed up on time and followed Lily around the park and answered every question seriously and went home at the end of the day without asking for anything additional. He did not perform. He did not campaign. He came back every time and let his presence speak entirely for itself. Grant Holloway was a good man in an uncomplicated situation. Marcus was a complicated man who had done something wrong and was doing the slower, harder thing now because it was the right thing. Those were not the same. It was on a Sunday evening 3 weeks into the new semester that Lily said the thing Nora had been turning over ever since. They were eating dinner at the kitchen table. Pasta, the simple kind with butter and parmesan that Lily preferred above all other variations. Lily had her fork in one hand and Biscuit the rabbit tucked under her other arm, because the rule about toys at the table had been renegotiated some time ago, and Nora had decided some battles were simply not worth fighting. Lily looked up from her plate. Mama, she said. Yeah, why don't you let people help you? Nora put her fork down. Lily was looking at her with those steady dark eyes. Not accusing, genuinely asking. The same open curiosity with which she asked why birds flew south or why ice was cold. A sincere question about how the world worked. What do you mean, Nora said. When Eugenia tries to carry the groceries, you say no. When Marcus tries to give you things, you say no. Lily considered her pasta. I let people help me. It's faster. Nora looked at her daughter. 4 years old. Completely serious. I just like to do things myself, Nora said. Lily considered this for a moment. That sounds lonely, she said, and went back to her dinner without ceremony. Nora sat with that for the rest of the meal and for most of the night after. The plain accuracy of it, the way a child could dismantle years of constructed reasoning with 4 words and a fork in her hand and no particular intention of doing anything beyond answering what she saw. That sounds lonely. She had never thought of it as lonely. She had thought of it as strong, as responsible, as what you did when you could not afford to depend on something that might not hold. But Lily was not wrong, and what landed hardest was that her 4-year-old daughter had learned the shape of this thing just from watching her. She did not want Lily to learn that shape and carry it forward. She picked up the phone and called the university's admissions office and left a message asking about next steps for returning students. She put the phone on the counter and stood in the quiet of her kitchen in the city that did not care in the apartment she had built out of necessity and stubbornness, and felt something that had been sealed for a long time begin quietly and without announcement to open. She sat with the decision for 3 days. Not because she did not know what she wanted. She knew exactly what she wanted. That was the problem. Wanting something clearly after years of not allowing it was its own kind of vertigo. Like standing up too fast. The world tilting slightly before it found its level again. She called her old academic advisor on a Friday morning, left a message, got a call back 2 hours later while she was wiping down the espresso machine at Brew & Co. during a lull between rushes. The advisor remembered her, said her coursework was still on record, said if she came back she would be starting her final year not from scratch, said the program was designed exactly for situations like hers, Said, "We have been hoping you would come back." Nora stood in the back room with the phone against her ear and felt something move through her chest that she did not have a clean word for. She said she would think about it, went back out to the floor, made 3 lattes, cleaned the steam wand, smiled at the regular who came in every morning at 10 and always ordered the same thing and always looked genuinely surprised that she remembered it. She smiled at him and kept moving and kept thinking. The math was brutal. Full-time school meant no Brew and Co. No Brew and Co. meant the list on her phone collapsed entirely. Rent, daycare, utilities, Lily's shoes which were already tight, the cavity in her back molar that had been sitting there since September with the patience of something that knew it would win eventually. She ran the numbers 3 different ways. They came out the same every time. She needed help. That word sat in her chest like something heavy and unfamiliar. Help. She had built her whole life around not needing it, had turned not needing it into a kind of identity, a proof of something that she was capable and sufficient, and that she could take what had happened at 18 and turn it into something that did not break her. And she had. She had done exactly that. But Eugenia's voice kept returning. That girl of yours needs to see her mother choose herself sometimes too. And Lily's voice from the dinner table 3 weeks ago. That sounds lonely. And the image she had not been able to put down since of her daughter at the front door, pushing her hands away and working the coat buttons herself with her jaw set and her small fingers determined, refusing to ask for help, and Nora thinking, where did she learn that? She knew exactly where. On Sunday evening, she called Marcus. He answered on the first ring. "I'm going to apply," she said. A pause. Just a breath. "Okay," he said. "I need help with the financial gap. While I'm in school, Lily's expenses and the basics." She kept her voice level and clear. "I want it formal, documented. A contract with terms that are fixed and specific. Not open-ended, not subject to anyone's mood." "I already have a name for you," he said. "Adelaide Voss, family law, 22 years of practice. But I want you to reach out to her yourself. Not through me, someone entirely in your corner." She had looked up Adelaide Voss herself 2 weeks earlier, after Marcus had mentioned the name once in passing. That he had remembered it and not used it, had held it back for her to reach toward on her own terms, at her own pace, meant something she was not going to name out loud yet. "I'll call her tomorrow," Nora said. "Tell her to be thorough. Every line should be clear. I know how to handle a contract. I know you do. I'm saying it so you know I mean it." Another pause. "Thank you," she said, which cost her something she had not expected. "Don't thank me," he said. "Just go back to school." She submitted the application on a Monday evening, sat at the kitchen table with her laptop and Lily's drawings covering the wall in front of her, and worked through the enrollment forms with the deliberateness of someone carefully dismantling something old and stubborn that had been built inside her without her full consent. It took 2 hours. When she hit submit, she sat back and looked at the ceiling for a long moment. Then she called Camille. Camille answered on the first ring. "You did it. Just submitted. I knew it. Are you freaking out a little?" "Good. You should be. Change is terrifying. Also, you are going to be incredible." A pause. "Also, I am personally offended that Eugenia got to write the nomination letter and not me." Nora laughed. Actually laughed out loud alone in the quiet kitchen. "You would have told me. That's exactly why nobody asked you," Camille said. The laugh lasted longer than expected. She needed it more than she had realized. The acceptance letter came 8 days later. She read it standing in the hallway of her building with her coat still on the electric bill and a catalog tucked under one arm. Accepted. Spring semester. Classes beginning February 10th. She stood in that hallway for a long time. Then she went upstairs and put Lily to bed with 2 stories the second negotiated up from 1 with the focused determination Lily brought to everything, and sat on the sofa until almost midnight, just being still with it. The contract came through from Adelaide Voss 2 weeks after that. Adelaide called on a Wednesday evening. Her voice was unhurried and precise, the particular authority of someone who had seen every version of this kind of agreement and knew exactly what the dangerous language looked like. "It's clean," Adelaide said. "No contingencies tied to your relationship with him. No language giving him decision-making power over your life. The support amount is fixed and indexed to increase as Lily gets older. The education fund is capped but substantial. Provisions for medical expenses and for extracurriculars as she grows." A pause. "This was written by someone who wasn't trying to leave himself any exits," Adelaide said. In my experience, that is not the standard. Nora read it herself 3 times, the way she read everything that mattered, and then she signed it. She started classes on a Tuesday in February. She dropped Lily at daycare and stood on the sidewalk outside for a moment afterward. Just stood there. A woman in a coat with a backpack that was new but trying not to look like it. Going back to school at 23. Not on the timeline she had imagined at 18. Not with the circumstances she had planned for. But going. The campus was 20 minutes on the bus. Her first class was American literature at 9. She sat in the back row not from uncertainty, but from habit. The back row was where you could see everything. The professor was a tall man with reading glasses he kept forgetting were on his head. He spent the first 10 minutes on the syllabus and then set it aside and said, "I would rather just talk about why any of this matters." Nora leaned forward slightly. She was in. The weeks rearranged themselves into a new shape. Classes Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Lily at daycare those mornings, same as before. Marcus came Saturdays and sometimes Sundays now, which had happened gradually and without announcement. One Sunday, he had texted asking if they were around, and Nora had said yes, and he had shown up with a puzzle and stayed 3 hours. When he left, Lily made a small sound at the door. Not dramatic, just a low note. The sound of someone who had gotten used to a presence and felt its absence plainly. Nora had watched Marcus hear that sound. He had crouched at the door and made a specific promise. Not "I will be back soon. I will be here Saturday at 10 and we will finish the puzzle." Okay. Lily had wiped her face. Said okay. Gone back to the living room. Nora had stood in the hallway after he left and thought about how much she had not wanted to feel anything about that moment and how completely that had not worked. Grant Holloway came into Brew & Co. on a Thursday morning the way he always did, and he stayed at the counter a moment longer than his order required. "I heard Harlow's let a lot of people go," he said. "I'm sorry. If you ever need an introduction anywhere, I know a few people." She looked at him, at the steadiness in him, at the uncomplicated way he stood there offering something real without any visible agenda behind it. "Thank you," she said. "I mean that." He nodded, picked up his coffee, held her gaze for one moment that said he understood more than he was saying. Then he left. She watched him go and stood there with the steam wand in her hand. He was a good man. She knew that clearly and without ambiguity. And she also knew with the same clarity that good and right were not always the same thing. She had a daughter who saved bench space with her scarf. She had a man who had learned her child's medical history alone and without announcement, so he would be ready if she ever needed him at midnight. That was not something you walked away from because an easier option was standing nearby with coffee. She put the steam wand down, got back to work. That evening she texted Grant. "I appreciate everything. I don't think I'm available in the way you'd want me to be. That's honest, and I think you deserve honest." She set the phone down and did not second-guess it. It was a Wednesday night in the third week of February. Nora picked up Lily from daycare and noticed on the walk home that she was quieter than usual. Not asking questions, not narrating the world around her the way she normally did with the running commentary that covered everything from sidewalk cracks to the color of a stranger's hat. She got her home, took her temperature. 102.4. She set up the sofa with blankets and biscuit and a glass of water with a straw, because straws made things better when you were 4 and sick, and everything had narrowed down to how much your head hurt. Lily looked up at her with glassy eyes. "My head hurts, Mama." The mama instead of mom. She only said that when she was really unwell or really scared or both. "I know, baby. I've got you." She called the pediatrician's after-hours line. Wrote everything down because writing things down was what she did when her hands needed somewhere to go while she was frightened and trying not to show it. She checked the temperature at 8, 103.2. At 9:15, 104.1. She called for a car, got Lily's coat on over her pajamas, tucked Biscuit under Lily's arm, found the insurance card in its designated pocket in her bag, the system working exactly the way she had built it, to work for exactly this kind of moment in the middle of exactly this kind of night. And then because her hands were full and the apartment was very quiet and she was tired in a way that went down past the body and into something she did not have a name for, she sent Marcus a text. Not asking for anything, just information the way she did things. "Lily has a fever. Taking her to urgent care. 104. She put the phone in her pocket and picked up her daughter and went. The waiting room was the particular endurance test of all medical waiting rooms at night. Plastic chairs bolted to the floor. A television mounted too high on the wall, running a nature documentary on mute. Three other families in various stages of waiting, with the particular resignation that waiting rooms produce. Nora filled out the intake forms with Lily folded against her shoulder. Biscuit wedged between them, the boneless weight of a sick child, somehow heavier than physics seemed to justify. She was halfway through the third form when she heard the entrance door. She looked up. Marcus, still in work clothes with his shirt untucked at the bottom the way it got when he had been moving fast. He scanned the waiting room, found them, and crossed directly over. He sat down in the chair beside her like it was where he was supposed to be. No entrance, no performance. Just sat down. How was she sleeping? A little. Fever's still up. He looked at Lily, at the small face pressed into Nora's shoulder, one hand curled around Biscuit's worn ear. Something moved behind his eyes and he let it move. Did not manage it or put it away. What do you need? He said. I have the forms. I have everything. I know you do. That's not why I'm here. She held his gaze for a moment, then looked back down at the clipboard. He got them both water from the vending machine without being asked, and without making anything of the gesture. Sat back down, did not hover or fill the silence with anything unnecessary. Just was there in the way that presence matters at 10 o'clock at night in a fluorescent waiting room when you have been keeping everything together by yourself for so long that your arms ache from it and you have forgotten what it felt like before they did. She finished the forms. At 11:40, the nurse called them back. Marcus stood when she called Lily's name, like it was automatic. Nora looked at him. He looked back, waiting, not pushing. Come on, she said. They went back together. The doctor was efficient in the way of someone who cared genuinely and was also tired and had been working since early morning and was going to keep working for several hours more. She examined Lily, who woke up enough to be uncooperative about the ear examination in particular, and then immediately went back to sleep against Nora's shoulder when it was done. The doctor looked at the intake form. Family medical history, mother's side. Nora answered. Father's side. Marcus answered without hesitation, without glancing at Nora for guidance or permission. Chronic ear infections through childhood. Respiratory sensitivity on his mother's side. No known allergies. Everything the form asked for, and two things it had not specifically requested because they were relevant, and he knew they were relevant. Nora listened to him answer the doctor's questions. She had not told him to prepare for this visit, had not sent him Lily's pediatric records, had not briefed him on what information a doctor might need at an urgent care appointment at 11 o'clock at night. He simply knew, because he had looked it up on his own a month after he first met Lily, sitting somewhere alone, without telling anyone, without announcing it, without waiting for her permission to become the kind of father who knew his child's medical history, so that when she needed him in a moment like this one, he would not be the person who showed up and did not know her. Nora sat with that through the rest of the appointment. The diagnosis was a standard ear infection that had elevated because Lily had been fighting it for several days without obvious outward signs. The doctor prescribed antibiotics, said the fever should break within 24 hours, said she needed rest and 2 days away from daycare, said she was going to be completely fine. Nora let out a breath, full and slow, the first complete one since 9:15. Lily opened her eyes on the exam table and looked at the doctor, then at Nora, then at Marcus. Is it done? She said. Almost the doctor said. I want to go home. I know, baby. A beat. Can Marcus come? The exam room was quiet. Nora looked at Marcus. His face was completely still, with the specific stillness of someone holding something significant, steady in a fluorescent room at midnight, because this was not the place for it, and he knew that. We'll see, Nora said. He drove them home. Lily was asleep before they cleared the parking lot. Marcus handled the prescription at the all-night pharmacy while Nora buckled Lily in. Came back with the bag, said nothing further about it. No report, no waiting for acknowledgement. The apartment building was quiet when they arrived. Marcus carried Lily up the stairs. He had the angle right, the specific way of holding a sleeping child so the weight was distributed and she would not be disturbed. The hand under the knees, the other supporting the small of her back. He had not asked Nora how. He had watched enough times to understand it on his own. Nora unlocked the door. He brought Lily in and laid her down with the slow and deliberate care of someone who understood that this particular moment mattered, pulled the blanket up to her chin, stood looking at her for a moment in the dim light, then stepped back. They stood in the doorway together, looking at the small sleeping shape in the dark room. Biscuit tucked in beside her. One long ear flopped over the edge of the pillow. Nora pulled the door halfway closed. They stood in the hallway. The medical history, she said. He waited. You knew all of it. You've never been to an appointment with her, and you knew all of it. I looked it up, he said. About a month after I met her, I started reading about what her father should know medically, what to watch for, what questions doctors ask. He looked at the half-closed door. I found her pediatrician's name from something you mentioned once, read through the standard intake protocols for children her age. He paused. I wasn't going to be the person who showed up for the hard moments and didn't know her. Nora stood in that hallway and felt something she had been carrying for a very long time begin to shift. Not forgiveness, exactly. Or not only that. Something quieter and more structural, like a wall that had been load-bearing for years, discovering that the weight it had been holding did not actually require it anymore. It had happened 3 Sundays ago, Marcus said quietly. You were studying in the other room. Lily was drawing at the table. She had been quiet for a while, which with her usually means something is being worked out. Nora looked at him. Then she looked up, he said. She said, Marcus, do you love my mom? He stopped. Not like a question, he said. The way she says everything. Like she already knows and just wants the confirmation. What did you say? He was quiet for a moment. I said I think so, but that I needed to learn how to show it right before I said it out loud to the person it was actually about. Another pause. She looked at me for about 4 seconds, he said. Then she said, don't take too long, and went back to drawing. The hallway held that. Nora looked at this man in the half-dark outside her daughter's door, at everything he was carrying and not performing, at the fact that a 4-year-old had asked the question Nora had not let herself ask, and had received the answer Nora had not let herself want. I'm not easy, she said finally. I don't trust fast. I don't forgive fast. I build things slow and I hold them close and I don't open the door until I'm sure. I know, he said. I'm telling you so you understand what you're asking for. Not the version of me from 5 years ago. This one, the one who went through all of it. He looked at her steadily. I'm asking for this one, he said. I've only ever been asking for this one. The hallway was quiet around them. Stay for dinner, she said. Tonight. And Saturday. And after that, we'll see. Okay. She looked at him for one moment longer. Then she turned toward the kitchen and he followed, and the apartment settled around them both like it had been waiting for exactly this. The call came on a Thursday afternoon 2 weeks later. Nora did not recognize the number. She almost did not pick up. She was between classes sitting on a bench outside the library with 15 minutes before her next lecture, coat pulled tight, coffee going cold. Mrs. Hayes. Yes. My name is Eleanor Ellison. I believe you know my son. Nora sat very still. I'm not calling through, Marcus, Eleanor said. He doesn't know I'm calling. I reached out to Adelaide Voss directly for your number, and I understand she was under no obligation to give it to me, and I am grateful that she did. A pause. I owe you an apology, Eleanor said, for what I said at the luncheon, about Marcus bringing things into his life that don't belong there. Nora did not say anything. She waited. I've been trying to find the right time to say this for 3 weeks, Eleanor continued, and I've decided there is no right time, so I'm saying it now. She paused. What I said was wrong. Lily is Marcus's daughter. You are her mother. Neither of you is something that does not belong. Her voice was controlled in the manner of someone who has prepared for a difficult conversation and is executing it without allowing herself to stop. I need to tell you something about Marcus, Eleanor said. Something I should have told him a long time ago and did not. When he was 6 years old, his father left. And in the months after I said things that I should not have said. I told Marcus more than once that his father had brought things into our life that did not fit. That some people introduced chaos and then disappeared and left others to manage it. She stopped. I was talking about his father. But Marcus heard it differently. He heard that he was one of those things. Something that had arrived and disrupted and did not belong. The library path was empty. A bird moved through the bare branches above her. He has spent his entire adult life trying to prove otherwise, Eleanor said, building something solid, being certain, never letting anyone see him uncertain. And when Lily existed and he found out all those reasons he gave you about fear, they were real, but the root of them started earlier than he told you. It started with a 6-year-old boy being told by the person he trusted most that people like his father caused damage. And he believed that story about himself for a very long time. Nora opened her eyes. I am not telling you this as an excuse, Eleanor said. I am telling you because you deserve to understand the full shape of what you are dealing with. And because I owe it to both of you to say it plainly while there is still time for it to matter. She hung up without ceremony. Nora sat on that bench for the full 15 minutes until her lecture started. Then she stood up, put her bag on her shoulder, and walked inside. She did not tell Marcus about the call that Saturday. She sat with it for another week, turned it over and fitted it against everything she already knew. Against the park bench in January, and the envelope and the quiet way he had listened to her talk about the emergency room at 2 in the morning without trying to make it about anything other than what it was. Against the way he crouched down for Lily, and the way he answered the doctor's questions, and the note he had left on the counter about the applesauce. She sat with all of it until it became something she could hold without needing to examine it constantly. It was a Sunday morning in early March. The good kind. No alarm. Pale late winter light coming through the curtains at an angle that meant the days were finally beginning to lengthen. Nora lay still for a moment and just listened. From the kitchen, the careful movement of someone who knew where things were and was trying not to wake her. Then Lily's voice low and directing with great authority. Then Marcus's voice following instructions without apparent complaint. The clink of a pan. The sound of batter being poured. Lily not yet patient but fully certain. Marcus saying, I know, and Lily saying it again 30 seconds later because once was apparently not sufficient confirmation. Then the sizzle when the heat was finally right. Lily saying now, Marcus saying now, the same word, the same moment, completely in sync without either of them planning it. Nora closed her eyes. She thought about her mother who had left when Nora was 14 and never come back. About the specific shape that kind of absence leaves in a person. The way it teaches you that love is conditional and temporary and not something you can safely build on. She thought about Marcus who had left and come back, who had sat across from her on a park bench in January and told the truth without softening it, and then kept showing up every single week after that without making a performance of any of it. She thought about Eugenia who had watched for 4 years in near silence, and then written 3 pages in October and said nothing about it until she had to. She thought about Camille who had stood in a cold alley at 11 at night and said, I'll be inside if you need me. She thought about Lily, who had saved a seat with her scarf, who had told a near stranger he could stay because he said he knew how to make pancakes, who had looked at her mother across a dinner table and said with complete and devastating simplicity, that sounds lonely. She thought about herself, Nora Hayes, 23 years old, student in the final year of a degree she had earned the hard way by coming back to it. Mother of the most direct person she had ever known, a woman who had kept a list on her phone for years and was only now beginning to need it less, who was maybe slowly learning what it felt like to let the door stay open. Mama Lily announced from the kitchen, not a question, never a question with her. They're ready. Coming, Nora called back. She got up, put on the sweater from the chair by the door, walked down the hall, pushed open the kitchen door, and there they were. Marcus at the stove with the spatula, Lily on her step stool beside him supervising with the unassailable authority of someone who has earned this position through sustained effort. The table was set, Nora's coffee already in her mug still steaming. Someone had remembered how she took it, without sugar, with just enough room. Lily turned and saw her, that particular beam, the one that started in her eyes before it reached her mouth, the one she saved for moments she was genuinely proud of. We made them, Lily said. Not burnt, Nora said. Not a single one, Marcus said. She looked at the two of them, at this moment in this small kitchen in this life that was hers. Lily climbed down from her step stool and wrapped both arms around Nora's waist for exactly 3 seconds, the way she did sometimes without explanation or preamble, and then climbed back up to resume her supervisory position. Nora sat down, picked up her coffee. Marcus set a plate in front of her. 3 pancakes even, in golden, not a burnt edge anywhere. Lily had clearly overseen every step of the process. Lily took her seat, cut into the top pancake with considerable ceremony, took a bite, chewed, looked at Marcus with the considered expression of a professional assessor. "These are good," she said. "Thank you," he said. "Better than Mom's," Lily Nora said. "It's true," Lily said. "It's true," Marcus said. Nora pointed at him. He raised both hands. The gesture of a man who had decided these particular pancakes were worth accepting a small diplomatic consequence for. Lily giggled, the kind that came from somewhere unguarded. And then they ate. The three of them at the small table with the extra chair pulled in from the corner. Morning light coming through the window. The ordinary sounds of an ordinary Sunday. Forks on plates. Lily asking why syrup was sticky. Marcus explaining the chemistry of it seriously and completely because she always got the real answer. After the dishes, Lily fell asleep on the sofa the way she sometimes did on Sunday mornings after too much excitement. One moment fully present, the next completely gone. One small foot hanging off the edge of the cushion. Biscuit clutched against her chest. Marcus covered her with the throw blanket. Stood looking at her for a moment. Then came to the kitchen doorway where Nora was standing with her second cup of coffee. He came and stood nearby, not beside her exactly. The particular distance between two people when something is happening and neither of them intends to rush it. "You know what Lily told me this morning," he said, "while you were still asleep." "What?" "She said, Marcus, today you should stay for breakfast and also lunch and also dinner and also maybe just stay." Nora looked at him. "She's 4, she said. "She's 4 and she's right," he said. The corner of Nora's mouth moved. Not quite a smile yet. The thing that comes before a smile when you have been careful for a long time and your face has not fully caught up to what your chest already knows. "We'll see about lunch," she said. He picked up his coffee. She picked up hers. "I want to tell you something," she said. "You don't have to say anything back." He waited. "A few weeks ago I got a call from your mother." He went still. "She called me directly," Nora said. "She told me what she said to you when you were 6. About your father, about people who don't belong." She paused. "She wanted me to understand where some of your fear came from. She said it started with her and she needed to say so." Marcus was quiet for a long time. "I didn't know she called," he said. "I know, she wasn't asking for anything. She was just making sure I had the whole picture." Nora looked at him. "I think she was also telling you something through me, that she knows, and that she's sorry." He looked out the window, at the pale morning light on the buildings across the street, at the March sky that was finally starting to believe in itself again. "She spent a long time believing she was protecting me," he said quietly. "I think so." Nora looked at him. "I think she was doing the best she knew how, the same as the rest of us." He turned back to look at her. Outside, the March morning was doing its best. Pale sun on the bare branches. The suggestion of something coming that was not quite here yet. The specific quality of light that arrives when winter finally admits it has run out of reasons to stay. Marcus stood beside her, present, not filling the air with anything that did not need to be said. Nora held her coffee in both hands and looked out the window and felt the morning settle around her the way good things do when you stop bracing against them. She had built something real out of almost nothing. This apartment, this life, the colored schedules on the refrigerator and the drawings on every wall, and the small, fierce person sleeping on the sofa with one foot in the air and the best rabbit in existence tucked against her chest. She had built it from necessity and from love and from the refusal to stop. And now there was more to work with. She looked at Marcus. He looked back at her. No performance, no campaign, just a man standing in her kitchen on a Sunday morning who had earned the right to be there one quiet Saturday at a time. "We're going to be okay," he said. "All 3 of us." "I know," she said. And she meant it in a way she had not meant anything in a very long time. Not as hope, not as something she was telling herself, as something she actually believed. Outside somewhere past all that pale winter light, the season was changing. Quietly, without fanfare. The way things change when they are finally ready and not before. The way everything that matters begins.